Do we do it? Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. First on our agenda, we have tuition reimbursement for a gifted certification. Mr. Santani.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. I asked the superintendent to prepare some information on what we do offer our teachers who would like to pursue gifted certification because it requires a master's degree, and I don't know if that's all that's required or not, but I'll let either Mr. Craig or Dr. Aguilar tell us what we offer right now.
So yes, sir, we actually, and it's not just for gifted certification, it's for, typically our priorities are OFATs. Those are teachers that are certified, but they're teaching outside of their original certification area. And typically those teachers really just need to take the praxis. They have the coursework in place, and they sign up for they get prior approval. They sign up for the praxis, they take the praxis, they bring us a satisfactory praxis score, and we'll reimburse them for the cost of that. If there's not a test for that certification, or the requirements are more rigorous, i.e. a master's degree or some other certification where you have to take coursework, and a test is not the only way to get the certification, we'll provide $1,000 I believe each semester for them to pursue certification in gifted. The other ones we might look at, whenever there's a test available, we don't pay class tuition, so you typically wouldn't pay for course tuition in biology or chemistry. We'd expect them to do the preparatory work on their own and just take a praxis test. We do not provide this tuition reimbursement for paraprofessionals. It's only for certified teachers. We really only provide the reimbursement for the test or coursework if it's necessary. We don't pay for the books. The teachers are made aware of this through the building level principals, and staff, in particular Ms. Gallion, when she meets with these folks as they come in to finalize their positions or go on an OFAT or PL, whatever it is they're working towards, she'll sit with them to work towards full certification in the coursework they're teaching.
How long have we had this program? When's the last time that the reimbursement level was examined? And is gifted typically the only coursework that falls under the qualified reimbursements?
Gifted is one of the big ones. Some of the math ones, if we can get, math is the other big one, potentially chemistry, physics, although that's a little hard to just walk in and take the praxis on. But gifted, math, and some of the sciences are typically where the interest is at. And coincidentally, those are kind of the high need areas where we're looking for. We wouldn't typically provide that for social studies. That would be a lower priority.
What how long have we done this? Do you know?
This has been, gosh, years and years. I don't think we really ever bust the budget on it, because I got to tell you, 25 years ago I took advantage of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll just call it forever then.
Yep. Yeah, I don't want to look at it that way.
No, I'm just saying, what's the point of saying that it's 25 plus? That's a sufficient number, right? Do we have any idea, Mr. Craig, when this $1,000 level was established, and secondarily, what a semester of gifted or physics or whatever master's degree coursework costs at UL or online or something like that?
I actually couldn't tell you what that would be. Look, we have people watching. Let me see if I can get the quick answer for you. They're checking for me. It's been $1,000 for a long time.
What did they reimburse when you did it?
It was close to $1,000.
All right.
And I don't know what current tuition rates are at UL right now. And that's typically where our kids go. Our younger teachers. Some of them do go to McNeese. Very few go outside of McNeese through UL.
Do we have anybody that we know offers this kind of degree with online coursework?
I don't know of anybody undergraduate degrees. There's a lot of people taking the online master's degrees. Because our proximity to UL and McNeese at the bachelor's level, we don't have as many online teachers as we do traditional universities. But when you get to the master's programs and some of the doctorate programs, there's a trend, I think, for working people. They're working 40+ hours a week, and they're doing the online programs.
Well, they show us on UL's website, just a cursory search says non-resident. Well, maybe I have to click on this link, as they have non-resident tuition and fees. Oh, so it looks like a resident of Louisiana. Is 12 hours considered a full course load in graduate school? It's
the minimum full course, typically 12 to 15 hours.
So it looks like you can take a full load for $5,100 per well, this is for the summer. Do we know that?
And most working teachers, maybe 6 hours a semester. Beyond that would be, they probably wouldn't be able to get their work done.
I was going to say, do we typically, do teachers, help me out here, do teachers typically go summers only, or do they take a lighter load in the fall and the spring?
No, but some of the folks that are on OFATs, they have to take at least 6 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coaching or sponsoring your own organization, you tend to take them in the summer. If you're working on a master's degree itself, you're probably typically you're going to try to knock off 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring, and whatever you can cram into the summer and try to knock it out in 18 months.
Okay.
Kind of depends on what your workload is during the day.
Do you have any idea what the tuition and fees were when you took advantage of this program? Ballpark's fine.
I don't look.
Was it $1,000? I mean, was it $1,000?
I can tell you, my first paycheck, I cleared less than $1,000, so I was taking a loan. I couldn't tell you. I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm putting you on the spot. No, I hear, certainly being the school board representative of Lafayette High, where the gifted program is, I certainly hear that there's a shortage of gifted teachers, and I'm interested in figuring out a way that we can encourage teachers to go to graduate school. Now, if we're only paying 20% of it, and I've seen what the raise they get when they get their master's degree, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of doesn't justify a whole lot of graduate study finance expense, that raise. So I'm trying to figure out a way to encourage teachers to go get gifted certified. Do we have, as part of this reimbursement, do we require an agreement that they will work for us for a certain number of years?
No, we do not.
So someone could take advantage of this. So right now, someone could take advantage of this and get their, get 20% subsidy for a master's degree and then go teach somewhere else?
Potentially, but not the surrounding parishes, there's not a lot of opportunities in gifted education itself, so you'd really have to leave probably the area to work that angle.
Okay.
We actually sat down 2 years ago, Dr. Roberts with UL and Dr. Aguilar, we sat down and we're talking about some kind of program, a leadership cohort, not necessarily gifted certification, but a leadership cohort. And I bet we had 50 people in the room that were really interested in it. But tuition is just, you're raising a family, you got a mortgage, and you're working full time. Unfortunately, it was prohibitive for, there was probably 40 people in the room, and I think it whittled down to about 4 or 5 by the time they figured out the costs and the expectations of the program.
So help me out here. Master's degree is how many credit hours? 30? 60? I barely made it through undergraduate, so forgive me.
Yeah, it's basically half, 120 for bachelor's, 60 for master's.
So $25,000?
Yeah.
If you're able to take advantage, because obviously it's 1,500 for the first credit hour, or let's say it's 1,700 for 3 credit hours. So if you're able to take advantage of that cost savings, I guess. I would like. Do you have any? So y'all see where I'm going with this? What are you laughing at? No. So y'all have any ideas here? Like what I'm thinking of, and I welcome suggestions or comments. How do we increase the number of gifted teachers that we have available? First, how do we?
I don't know if we make a difference from a teacher that maybe want to get an additional certification. I know at SLCC we have an agreement with UL where the person that would like to further their education will pay for it and we reimburse, and they give it. We have it for a certain amount per credit hour, like a discount. And I think that's kind of like what we're doing, right? Or not at all. Or maybe we could look at doing something like that. Have some type of agreement with a university that will offer some type of discount for our employees.
That's a very good question. So do we have, Mr. Craig, this $1,000? Do you have to hit a minimum number of credit hours for that semester, or can you just take 3 and get the $1,000?
It needs to be a structured curriculum that's working towards the certification we need. You couldn't just
you can't do it for 10 years.
Yeah, so there's a time limit on it, and it's got to be approved through HR that you're actually taking specific course of study to get certification in a timely manner.
What's the time limit?
I think we'd give them 2 semesters. I'm sorry, 4 semesters. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's a little more reasonable.
I mean, I don't think we have a set time limit, but you got to be making a conscious effort on a specific course of study.
Wait, so 4 semesters or 2 years?
It's about the same. It kind of depends on what, like I said, it depends on what you're doing in the summer.
Spring, fall. Most people go during the summer as well to knock out the other summer hours. If you can do 12 times 4, you get 48, and that leaves you a summer of 6, a summer of 6.
Okay.
And you kind of, and you got to get with your advisor at the university because they don't offer every course every semester, so you kind of got to plan that out over a couple of years just to make sure that you're taking the courses they need when they're offered. So HR works with UL in terms of what's being offered, and you get 2 kids signing up for a class, it's not going to get offered, and so you have to kind of roll it over till you get a cohort of kids that'll sit in that class together.
Are teachers able to do 12 hours during the school year?
It depends on if it's online. Sometimes they'll take online classes or night classes. That may be possible.
They can take 2 classes per semester
and knock out a couple in the summer. So 2, 4, 6, 8. You potentially could if the courses were falling your way and you're not sponsoring basketball and you're not married, you don't have 2 kids.
You're asking a lot.
It's a young person's challenge.
It sure is, and I think that's kind of the thing. I want to make sure that we're trying to remove as many obstacles as possible.
So, Mr. Centani, these are federal dollars that are available. Every district has a small amount of federal monies that are available to help teachers, what used to be called becoming highly qualified.
Mm-hmm.
So to get their credentials. In the case of St. Mary Parish, we were woefully short in the administrative pool, and so we worked with UL Lafayette, Dr. Roberts. We worked up an agreement with the university where the professors would travel to St. Mary Parish. The courses were offered to St. Mary Parish teachers who were working toward administrative certification. So we graduated in about a 3-year period. We graduated 30 teachers receiving administrative credentials. So it immediately filled up our administrative pool. We began hiring those people as soon as positions became available. They were familiar with the St. Mary demographics, the data, and so they were ready to step up. We could do the same thing in Lafayette for gifted education. This money that's available is currently $38,900. Those are federal dollars. That money could remain for teachers working for practice credentials or other credentials for as little as a sum of money that the board would put in the budget. We could try to begin building a cohort of 15 to 20 individuals interested in gifted education and have the board pay an appropriate amount of money and see if this begins the process of trying to get people with the credentials.
Can we possibly put any kind of survey to our teachers to see how many are, how many, I guess the question might be, want to be gifted teachers but are unable to do so for cost, time, those kinds of factors? I mean, you know, I'm personally not opposed to paying the full amount of tuition for concessions, like you will come and teach gifted for us for 5 years,
So,
or something along those lines.
so I think the quick answer is yes. I think it would be interesting to survey our teachers to find out how many teachers are in fact in graduate school now. They're working on master's degrees and ed specialist degrees. They're trying to get those credentials to become gifted certified or administratively certified or certified as a guidance counselor. We probably have quite a large number of teachers in graduate school.
I mean, take it to this level then, and maybe not. It's not for every graduate school course of study, but if we have gifted math, chemistry, physics, if we're short on educational leaders, if we're, you know, our needs where we're falling short. I mean, this could be a critical need program instead of just a continuing education program. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I think you're on the right track, that if we declared these were critical shortage areas and we had the resources to assist, then it would be incumbent upon the employees to take us up on our offer, because they end up with the credential
Right.
and possibly the more coveted teaching position if it's gifted. It's a question of how much money do you want to seed this idea in next year's budget, if at all.
Okay.
Question. The salary for a gifted teacher, is it more than a normal? It's all the same? Okay.
It's the same, yes, ma'am.
It's the same for teachers with master's degrees.
Yes,
Right, okay.
anybody with a master's degree in that number of years, yes. You don't, a master's degree teacher in social studies gets the same salary.
And maybe a question for the next time you speak with our attorney: are we able to enforce some kind of agreement that says, you know, you will, you know, kind of like Mr. Kinesic, he went to the Naval Academy, had to serve 4 years in the Navy after he got his education. So are we able to enforce that sort of agreement where we're able to, you know, we want to fill our gifted teaching positions, but we certainly don't want to populate the gifted teaching ranks of Iberia Parish, for instance?
We'll check with council on that.
With that said, we're not paying the whole amount for their education, right? So I'm not sure if it's fair to say you have to teach here. What are we giving them? What are we giving them?
20% at UL.
So
20% of a full course load at UL.
okay.
No,
You think that's enough?
I don't think at 20% we can be making demands of anybody. But I think part of the point I'm making is that if we are serious about this and fund some kind of increased level of tuition reimbursement for these hard to fill teaching positions, then we certainly, you know, they're hard to fill here. They're harder to fill in St. Mary Parish, right? How many physics teachers were you able to find when a job came open? We can't find them here.
One.
Yeah. Yeah.
When a job becomes open.
That's right. You want job security? Go be a physics teacher. Tell you. So if we're gonna educate our teachers to fill these hard to fill positions, we'd certainly like to make sure we get some return on the investment that we're making. So, okay, that was really it. I wanted to just kind of talk about this and see if there was any improvement that we can make. I appreciate all the comments, guys.
Mr. Santani, the tuition was $1,700 for one course?
$1,726. This is summer 2018.
Okay.
$1,726 for 3 credit hours, and it essentially goes up. It essentially like a little bit less than double. So like 3,200 for 6, 4,700 for 9, and 5,100 for 12.
And I'm being told we do have somebody in a master's program at UL right now. 2 courses, $3,600. So roughly 6 hours, $3,600.
Got it.
Yeah, Justin.
I don't know if the price. I don't know if the fees vary fall and spring too. But.
Like right now, Jill is 6 hours from her master's, and she's doing it online. So the exact same thing that you're asking. And I think McNeese is 4,000 from what I remember, and hers is the transcript I just sent you. She did 9 hours the first fall and spring, and then has been doing 6 thereafter. And I think 6 is probably the right amount with kids and work and everything.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, 2.2, review of state and district assessments.
What are we mandated to do and what aren't we? So who's leading that? Anybody?
Mr. Guidry?
Annette, you want to do?
I'll be happy to address. I'm not exactly sure what the question is.
What my question is, and I'm not the maker of this one, but I have an initial question. What are we mandated by the state? What is the district mandate? And then what are all the other assessments that we take? So
on the attachment, the spreadsheet, the required LDOE accountability system, we are mandated to take the ACT, the LEAP 2025. Summer school, we do offer retakes for LEAP 2025. GEE, the end of course testing, and the English language proficiency tests. So those are for the accountability system. Required by state policy, we're required to test students who are coming into our system from home schools. So we use Terra Nova. We are required to do a universal screener for K-3. We used Fountas and Pinnell. We used a developmental skills checklist, normally known as DSC. We use TS Gold with the pre-Ks. And the universal screener we use for K through 9, we used NWEA. And then there's the high school civics test that's required by state law that we also administer. So basically via the state, those are our mandated tests that are given. District initiatives to address our school's performance scores at the high school and also our district performance score overall. We do offer CLEP testing, advanced placement testing, ACT retesting, work keys to substitute for ACT test scores, and also we do offer work keys retesting for some of the subtest components that students did not pass. And the last part, our district elected, we do have our pre-ACT, which is given, I believe 10th graders at the same time that the 11th graders are taking the ACT. And LEAP 360, which was optional this year, schools could elect to use it or not use it. Next year will be part of our mandatory process. And that one is free. It's an interim assessment, and it is aligned with the students' their LEAP 2025, and will also be used for the teacher student learning targets, their SLTs. And iSteep is used only for selected populations. It's used for progress monitoring. About 6,500 students are involved with that. And that's conducted weekly. It's a very short, very small test to monitor their progress on the interventions that are being offered to the student.
Ms. Morrison, I don't want to speak out of turn, but
Mrs. Santani?
thank you. Do we have any, can you list the number of days or hours that it takes to administer these different assessments? And we can start, we can, I guess, maybe skip let's not skip the accountability system tests, but focus a little more heavily on the ones that we do have control over.
So in general, the accountability system, for example, the month of April and the first week in May is basically your LEAP 2025, and that is for grades 3 through 8. We have been testing our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders this month using the technology, and next week will be grades 3 and 4, which is paper and pencil. The GEE
is that 5 days apiece or the entire month, or should we discuss this in terms of hours?
Different grade levels on different days. We don't have enough computers to test everything.
right.
Okay.
So it is spread out over a period of time. I believe the paper and pencil next week, Tom, is for 4 days. Right.
How many hours would you, in a ballpark is fine, Tom, hours would you say it takes for a student in, would we say 5th through 9th, to take the technology-based test? 5th through 8th, I'm sorry.
Probably a total of between 6 and 8 hours, depending on the
Okay. And that for 5th through 8th covers their testing for the year, as far as the accountability system goes. Okay. And Terra Nova?
Tom, you want to speak on Terra Nova? I know that's in your department. Could you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
While he's going to the mic, I would say in terms of the EOC test at the high school level, the high school administrators have basically everything else becomes secondary, and they can knock out all EOC tests in between 7 and 13 days. And that's getting every kid on every computer possible. They juggle the daily bell schedule, they juggle the duty assignments, and instead of dragging out for 4 weeks, they're able to knock it down to basically 7 instructional days, and they wipe it out. Really, they started today. They're starting today, and by the end of next week they should be pretty much done.
When you say 7 instructional days, is that what the typical student will spend taking the EOC
No,
test?
so you got different grade levels. So you got to.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so your freshmen and your juniors and your sophomores, they're typically taking it. But what happens is you adjust your bell schedule so that you can get all these kids in and test as much as you can during the day. So you'll potentially, one day you'll shorten 4, 5, 6, 7. The next day you'll have a long 4, 5, 6, 7, and then test those days. And you get the duty. The teachers are extremely accommodating. They cover each other's classes. They cover the labs. They proctor, and just that becomes the focus, is to get the EOC test done in a concise manner, as opposed to dragging it out over weeks.
Terra Nova is actually 2 tests, English and math. It generally takes a student about 2 to 3 hours to take the test. That may be 1 child with 1 test administrator. In the summer, we tend to do larger groups because we have more of these kids from outside the system coming in that we have to test. That's on an as-needed basis. It's only when one of them shows up and needs to be placed.
What does unapproved private school mean?
Sorry?
What does unapproved private school mean? It says students from home schools and unapproved private schools.
There's a classification of schools called unapproved. Well, it's not actually unapproved. It's non-public, not seeking approval. They don't meet attendance requirements. In our conversations, we don't even consider them schools. They're diplomas. They don't offer diplomas. They're not recognized. But it is an official classification the state has created.
How many of those schools do we have in Lafayette Parish? I don't need you to say any names, but
One that I positively know of, because we have quite a few kids that leave our system and are counted as dropouts because they're not really a school. We have a neighboring town very close to our district that has one, and
Okay.
takes quite a few of our kids.
All right. Okay, how about Fountas and, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to say it.
So the next one's Fountas and Pinnell, DSC, and TS Gold. They're all screeners that are administered during a period of time. Some of them are very short and very quick. Others, because of the age of the student, kindergarten, may take a period of time for the student to accomplish. There's a block of time that this has to be finished in, which I believe, Tom, is September 29th for the state. I think
that's when we submit the file.
So to tell you exactly how long, again, it's teacher directed and it's teacher monitored as to how long it might take a student.
All right, you can just keep going down the list if you don't mind.
Okay, I think the one that probably has created the most discussion is the universal screener we've been using for the past couple years, and that's NWEA. NWEA is a very thorough tool. It actually spirals down with a student. As a student answers questions correctly, it adds another level, so it's always checking its previous responses to challenge the child to the next level. Again, this is an untimed test. For some students, it may be accomplished in less than an hour, and for some students, because they're more advanced in their knowledge, it may take them a day or two with an hour block each time. Normally, we do not test a student with NWEA for more than a 60-minute block of time. And the
And we do that
civics,
3 times a year?
It was last year 3 times. This year, we changed it to be a beginning of the year and a mid-year assessment for students in K through 8. And for science, it is a 3-time because there is not a science assessment for our teachers with their SLTs.
Do we use NWEA in our SLTs?
Yes.
So we conservatively say, so when you say twice a year, so that means the average student is probably spending 4 hours taking this test? 3 hours? 6 hours? Total?
I would say probably not that long for the average student, probably 2 to 3 hours. Again, your more advanced students, it may be taken more.
Okay.
In clarification, this year it is not being used for SLTs for most of the teachers. And I know Brian's not here, but Shauna, if I'm understanding, the SLTs is just for science this year with NWEA.
To my knowledge,
Yes.
What are we doing with the data if it's not being used for SLTs?
It is to monitor students' progress, to see where they're beginning and where they're ending. And in this case, because of the number of tests given in the spring, we chose to do a mid-year assessment to monitor student growth.
Okay.
And that data is linked to all of their other, any other performance data that we collect. We can compare it to last year's LEAP. When we get this year's LEAP, we can create a historical timeline of how they've been doing, and the NWA is just additional points that we add to that.
Okay. That's a pretty expensive additional point.
And Mr. Santani, I'd like to point out that actually we've been having a conversation district-wide, and we're looking at moving away from NWEA for next year. We do use, if you look at the bottom of the list for district elected, we use iSteep as a progress monitoring tool, which is a requirement for pupil appraisal for students that may need additional interventions at Tier 2 or Tier 3 for academics. It has a universal screening tool with it, and for 144,000 $450, we would get the progress monitoring and the universal screener together. So we are working on a RFP to move in that direction.
Can you say that cost again?
Yeah, I'm caught between bifocals and distance here. $144,450.
And that would get us,
That would remove the 340,320 and the 48,685. If you add them together, this quote would replace both.
and then everybody would just be using iSteep?
Yes, sir.
So it says here that the universal screener is required by state policy. Does that mean iSteep would then move into the block where it says required?
That is correct. And it is listed on the state website as a Tier 1 benchmark assessment, so
What is NWEA listed as?
it's currently a Tier 3.
Okay.
And this is for all grades, pre-K through 12, the 65?
No, ma'am. We do the screener, we used to do the screener for K-10, and again, through our academic meetings, we're realizing many 9th and 10th graders, the purpose of the screener is to find students who have deficits in their academic level. We know most of our 9th and 10th graders that already have the deficits from previous years. So we're really finding that screening the students at 9th and 10th grade for intervention really isn't producing a lot of results. So we're looking at doing just K through 8 as we did this year.
What was the $300,000 number?
NWEA plus, it's almost 400,000. NWEA plus iSteep.
Okay. What was the individual $300,000 number? 360.
NWEA was $340,320.
320. Okay. So the 340 and the 48 would replace. Okay. When did we choose NWEA?
2015, I think in June or July, 2015.
Was that a committee?
Yes, sir.
Who's on that committee?
It was the academic team, myself included, and Dr. Aguilar.
Academic team and Dr. Aguilar. So let me ask this question. Somebody give me the reasoning behind choosing a Tier 3 versus a Tier 1.
Well, and I'll be real honest with you, at the time, I don't know if it was rated, if it was tiered at the time. I'd have to go back and research.
Okay.
Again, I just don't know if it was even tiered at the time when we pursued it.
Okay. If somebody could actually search that out for me.
I can do that.
With some proof as well.
Yes, sir.
So that's the when, and then that's the who. Is there any reason why it's numerical signs? Was there supposed to be a number here?
I'm sorry?
Any reason why for the universal screener for NWA we have numerical signs instead of the actual number?
Oh, so open up your spreadsheet, pull the column over, because we all have a number.
Oh, okay. Numbers that big that it can't show? Wow.
The 3 and the 4 and the 0 must be fat together. I don't know what.
Man, that's amazing. I've got 2 of them that I was like, man, what, they keeping that number from me?
That was my comment. That's an expensive data point.
Gosh, there it goes. Wow. All right, so there's my other number. That was my next question, what the other number was. Okay. So it looks like the focus now is Tier 3 and Tier 2 and Tier 1, and obviously we want Tier 1 and the whole 9 yards. Do we need to come up with a policy board-wise that, I mean, I don't know if anybody would actually need direction on that, but can we just cease to exist when it comes to the prehistoric, oh, well, we have, that's a Tier 3 curriculum. Like I almost lost my mind with my son's math when I found out what that actually ranked as. Like if we could just, would you guys like an actual policy or passed down as a directive from the board? Because as far as choosing a Tier 3 or a Tier 2, I mean, we obviously would like the best of the best. I don't even want to exist in a world where we're choosing tier 3s and tier 2s anymore. So would policy help or not?
We actually don't have a problem with the policy. Our intention is to examine all of our curricular materials, and we're going to continue to move forward picking the strongest available. In some cases, it will be, in all instances, tier 1. In others, it might be a tier 2, but with modifications. If there's not a tier 1 available, with modifications, a tier 2 could be very, very effective. We recognize at this point that after the fact, after we made some purchases, some of these items were evaluated by the state. So we were left with making the best recommendation we could at the time, but then subsequently they were rated by the state.
Okay.
Just as soon as we can clean up this, we're going to move to tier 1.
So what I'm going to need is a follow-up on Ms. Samick's, on my request with Ms. Samick. Ms. Samick, I
Yes,
would
sir.
actually like proof that these things weren't rated before we chose them. And if they were, then I'm just hearing conflicting statements.
Okay.
Okay.
So
You're talking about all instructional materials? You're talking about testing? You're talking about?
Well, the main ones that we're, I guess, harping on right now to hear that, well, after the fact, we find out that state assesses them, and, oh, well, it was assessed as a tier 3. I've got a problem with if we just went ahead and chose a tier 3 just because, as opposed to what I'm hearing from Dr. Aguilar just now. Okay. How soon are we transitioning to the full I-STEEP that we were requesting?
Well, my academic team, Pupil Appraisal, 504 RTI, and Mr. Lee Francis have been working on an RFP. So I just printed, before walking into this meeting, the draft of it. I need to review it, and hopefully if we can have it ready before we have to post agenda items, maybe as early as May 2nd.
Okay.
is the idea going to be that NWEA goes away completely and then I-STEEP covers K-9, or is I-STEEP going to be combined with, I wrote down LEAP 360 as well, is that going to be combined with LEAP 360 in some other fashion?
LEAP 360 is a free tool. It's aligned to the LEAP 2020. It serves a different role. It's not a screener. It's not a universal screener, so it's not identifying students that perhaps have academic weaknesses that need to be targeted with intervention. So LEAP 360 will be more of a tool to assist teachers with their SLTs, to monitor the students' progress towards the standard-based mastery of standards. So NWEA will go away. I-STEEP would be the replacement if the bids go well, and we would then use, it would be for K-8, it would be a screener and a progress monitor. It would serve both roles. K-8. As I said earlier when I was asked about 9-12, there's really not a purpose to universal screen. Any student that we suspect, perhaps a transfer student in or a new student that enrolled in 7th or 8th grade, we can still screen the student. We have that right, but we don't see a purpose for screening all 9th graders when we already pretty much know who needs assistance and who doesn't.
And so what grades would LEAP 360 be used for?
LEAP 360 is for grades 3 through 8. It's aligned with LEAP 2020, 2025.
All right, so I'm gonna. You can treat me as if I don't know anything, because really I don't, as far as testing and assessment goes. So why would we not use I-STEEP for K-2 and LEAP 360 for 3 to 8? That may be the dumbest question ever, and that's fine if it is. But
We don't get very thorough information out of the Leap 360 system at all. It's a state-operated system. It's actually free right now. We're not paying anything for it. But when we want to pull data and get specific information, Leap 360 doesn't give us much of anything at all.
so then why are we using that? Or why are we planning on using that?
It's actually a different product. It's for a teacher to know if their kids as a whole are where they should be at the particular time they give their assessment. It doesn't give us the type of information we would need to know to find out an individual student's weaknesses and where we need to focus to get them caught up to speed. It's more like it tells you what the kid's score is, and it tells you how your kid's class did on the Leap 360. These pieces that we're talking about as screeners gives us much more specific information. It lets us know what skills the kid has deficits in, and you can actually plan instruction, individualized instruction for the kids with those screeners.
Okay.
We have a comment from the audience? Yeah.
I get that it's free, so right now it's not costing anything, but if it only is telling us what our qualified teachers should know, they can look at the class and know what kid is where. Ask any teacher. So I'm not a teacher, but I have plenty of teacher friends. Parent was a teacher. I mean, teachers know where the kids are in their class. Why do we have to have another test? I'm here as a parent, and I have a lot to say on this, so I'm hoping I have some time. But there are so many tests given to these kids. It's insane. And the 4 hours, 6 hours, that's fine when we boil it down to that exact test. But that doesn't include the pre-test and the practice test and the this test. And it's insane what we're doing to these kids. So it's free, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that we have to have so many tests when we could just ask the teachers. We hire qualified teachers. Why are we not using them? Why do we have to have all of these tests that really, a lot of research has shown that these tests don't do what we think they're doing. They're showing us what kids test well. You can have an incredibly smart kid who is a sucky test taker, or happens to have a crappy day, or who is sick that day and has a bad test. So what is that showing us? What is that giving us about that kid or kids in general? When these tests really are only showing what they can do that day. It's not showing what they're learning. It's not showing how much they're learning. And it sure as heck isn't saying that this is a good teacher or a bad teacher just because you had some bad grades on that test. We can have phenomenal teachers, and we do. We have unbelievably awesome teachers in this system, and we're not trusting them. We're not letting them do their jobs. We're rating them on kids that have been tested to death, are done. By the end of the year, when they're taking their leaps, do you really think these kids care? They're done. They're tired. They're tapped out. They've taken NWAAs, they've taken leaps, they've taken practice leaps, they've taken, every leap practice test under the sun, and they're done. They're sick of it. And then they have the schools adding the pressure of telling them that if they don't pass this leap, they're going to fail the grade. So you have good students who are freaking out, going to school crying, having breakdowns. Is this really, really what we want to be doing with our kids? So, to come back to the main question about 360, if it's not really giving us any information, more than telling us which kid is deficient, ask the teacher. The teachers know who in their class is deficient, where they're deficient. What are we doing? I don't understand this. I really don't understand what we're doing to our kids in general, not just Lafayette. It's all over, I get that. But we are wasting so much money on tests and tests and tests. We have schools that are crumbling. We have no money to fix them. Well, then let's stop doing all these tests. The ones that I'm not a teacher, so I didn't know what a lot of these were, but I know my kids in elementary and middle are taking a ton of tests all the time. It's cutting out their instructional time. You want these kids to learn and grow, and you want Lafayette Parish to be a leader? Get rid of these stupid tests. Let the teachers teach. We have cut out so much instructional time that these kids could actually be learning because we're having a test, we're having to move, we have to go to this classroom, we have to get to these computers, we have to split up because we don't have enough computers. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I have a lot to say, but I'm sure you don't want to hear everything, but I don't know if I can get any answers on this, but I would love some if you guys would give me some answers, because I would really, really like to know why we're doing this to our kids. So I know you have kids, and I know you have kids in the system. I'm not sure about you, Miss Morrison, but yeah, I mean, come on. We can see our kids stressing out like maniacs for these tests. And I swear, if one more school tells my kid that they're going to fail the grade because they don't pass this test, I am going to explode. It drives me batty. So that's my say. I have a lot more if you have any other questions for me, but that's my say right now.
Trust
Thank
me,
you.
she does have a lot more to say on this topic.
I have a question. Do you ever look at how many hours we're testing students in a 9-month school year, whatever test it is that they're required? If it's 10 hours during the 9 months,
we actually filled
12.
out a survey for the state last year that the legislature required. I asked them for our information back. Mrs. Samick and I sat for an hour and a half, I think it was, putting numbers and things in a computer for the survey. And then they couldn't spit the information back out to me in a format where we could find out what our total was. We were entering each of the individual items. So,
Ms. Lightfoot brought up a good point that I forgot about, was the pre-tests and the practice tests and things of that nature. Do we have any? I mean, I would assume this goes nothing beyond anecdotal. Do we have any idea for a 2 to 3 hour test, how many practice tests or pre-tests a child takes? Or the 6 to 8 hours for the LEAP 2025? Or
if the classroom instruction is aligned with the standards, okay, standards and benchmarks, or the curriculum, if all of that's aligned, every test they take throughout the year that the teacher makes, okay, would be a practice test for LEAP at the end of the year. So I wouldn't know how to split out.
I mean, my fourth grader, she takes practice tests that are not towards her grade. They're just practice tests. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not going to be anything beyond anecdotal, but
we don't have any district required practice tests that I'm aware of, other than that pre-ACT. Even LEAP 360, if you want to call it that, that's optional. The schools can use it. I'm not even sure who makes the decision on whether to use it or not. It may be the individual teacher, but I wouldn't have any idea about the practice.
So just for clarification, LEAP 360 is a new tool that LDOE implemented this year. Again, it was optional. It is given at the beginning of the year to give a teacher an idea as to what the students know towards the end of the year, LEAP 2025. It's a diagnostic the first time around. It should be given just at least one more time. I think next year you can give it as many as 3 times, so it'd be a mid-year and end of the year. The mid-year assessment should basically, it's the same type of test all over again. It should tell you the growth the student has had towards meeting the standards necessary to do well on LEAP 2025. So it's a diagnostic the first time. There's an interim assessment, and again, some of them I think have a third assessment that can go with it. These are short assessments, by the way. They're not like LEAP tests. They're very short diagnostic and interim assessments.
do these any of these beginning, mid, and end of year assessments, do they count towards a student's grade? Because what Mr. Spencer said kind of struck a chord with me, where if and maybe I'll back up a step and say, are all of our curriculums aligned with the standards? Because I've always assumed that if the curriculum is aligned with the standards and the teacher is making a test that tests what she's teaching, what he or she is teaching in class, that the student's grade would pretty well mirror exactly what LEAP 360 or some mid-year assessment would tell us, right?
And to answer that, the answer is yes. We have spent a great deal of time with our content coaches, our instructional leaders, our lead teachers in the classroom, as well as our specialists, making sure that the Louisiana student standards for ELA, math, science, and social studies are being addressed in classroom instruction in our not only the scope and sequence, but also the curriculum map. So the answer is yes, and we've even worked on kindergarten and somewhat first grade assessments for report cards to show whether the student is working towards mastery of the standards.
That was my question. I wanted to make sure that that information was being sent home to the parents so they'll know, you know, what they need to work on with the kids. I know that the teachers know what they need to work on in the classroom, but the parents knows as well.
And we've become very cognizant of the fact that in the past we were not always addressing standards. Teachers were not always aware of standards. Sometimes it was following a scope and sequence of, oh, I got to get through the textbook. But over the past few years, and as recently as the past 2 years, we've been working extremely hard to make sure that it is the standards that the state is requiring teachers to teach that are being assessed in the classroom.
I have a comment and then a question. Again, this is a comment in general about the testing. Again, just my 7th grader just finished hers. It was split over 2 weeks. She didn't have math for that time because it was during the LEAP testing. So again, we're cutting out all sorts of instruction that she lost out, and all the other kids. Now, other kids had math at the end of the day, so they had math. My kid, who has math at the beginning of the day, didn't have math. That stinks. It really stinks. Number one, I mean, there's got to be a better way to do that. Number one, you know, I mean, we should be moving it around or something. I don't know, because I know some schools were moving the schedules around. Why not all the schools are on board with that is beyond me. I mean, they should be. I would think it should be pretty standard. It's obviously not. So that's a problem in my book. But I have a specific question. If we're trying to figure out, you know, if the kids are learning what they know at the beginning of the year to what they know at the end of the year, that they've met their standards or whatever, isn't one test, like at the beginning and maybe one at the end, enough? Why do they have to take so many tests during the year? And it's not just these, it's the STAR, and there's so many different types of tests that these kids have to go through, not just these specific LEAP and NWAs. I mean, they do a lot of other standardized tests too, correct? I know my kid does, so is there a list of all of the tests that these kids are taking, required or not?
Well, I think the key word there is required. It's some of this, I was asked to do state and district. This is what we do. Individual schools, individual teachers may require different tests that are not necessarily required by the district, but it doesn't mean it's bad instruction or bad assessment.
Agreed. But it's still another test that the kids are having to take, and it's another test that's taking time away from them learning in a class. So why can't we say, if it's not required, you don't need to be doing this, stop doing it? I mean, right? Is that not?
Well, and again, some assessments are part of, for example, I-STEEP might identify that a student needs tier interventions with reading assessments. So you would go to your academic intervention toolbox, which might have an electronic tool that does periodic testing to see if the child is progressing. It's not district-wide. It's not all student populations. It varies for different individuals.
What about the STAR test? I mean, as far as I understand, all kids are taking the STAR test, all throughout elementary at least. I think even my junior high kid is taking the STAR test. That should be telling you if you're not reading up to level, because all these kids are being tested. But never mind that. My teacher can tell me if my kid is reading at the appropriate level, again. So again, we're spending money on tests that we could just ask the teachers. I mean, isn't that what we pay them for? We pay teachers to teach these kids. We pay them to be in a classroom and to help them learn. They can look at the kids and know. So again, why do we need the STAR test when a teacher could be doing it? I never had a STAR test growing up. My teachers knew where I could read and when I couldn't read. I mean, I just, again, I don't see the need. And again, if they're not required, why are we spending money on them? And why are some schools doing them and some are not? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. If this is a Lafayette Parish and all the schools should be doing the same thing, then they're either doing the same thing or they're not. If a test is required, we give it, and if it's not, why are we wasting money?
What is the STAR test? Okay. Is that true? Is that what it is? I believe you, but just wanted to verify, make sure we're all on the same page.
It's a vocabulary test. If you were taking it, it would keep giving you harder and harder vocabulary items until you started missing, and then it goes down. It actually establishes what reading level they're on, and originally that whole program, that level you were on determined what books you would get credit for if you were reading in your accelerated reader program.
Okay.
STAR and accelerated reader are the same company.
So is Dr. Aguilar, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Fast Forward come with an assessment piece to it whenever, or was Fast Forward just for children who are behind?
It does, but we don't have every student in every school in Fast Forward.
Okay.
But we do have a lot of librarians that are pushing accelerated reader, and so this is a short assessment to measure their readability level. There are lots of tests that are administered at the school or classroom level that teachers use, aside from the ones that are district or state mandated. All those things are designed to very quickly and hopefully efficiently identify where the child is and what needs to be done next. There is, across the country, there is a preponderance of time spent on testing. Like it or not, we are being assessed, schools, districts, we're being assessed by student achievement. This country, with No Child Left Behind, and now with ESSA, and the efforts to move away from basic to mastery as the new level for every child, we are spending a lot of time and money and energy on testing. We're trying to help these children identify where they are and what the deficiencies might be and what the next intervention needs to be. I wish the country would back off of testing and let classroom teachers have the professional capacity to determine what these kids need. Unfortunately, I just don't see the tide turning at this point. John White and the legislature did survey districts to find out how much time was involved in testing. To my knowledge, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, the state did trim a little bit of time off of state testing. John White is trying to tool back the number of hours needed for high-stakes testing. Likewise, at the district level, when we realize that a tool isn't giving us the information we need, as in the case of 9th and 10th grade progress monitoring, we want to stop that behavior. We want to reduce the number of times that instruction has to stop so that we have more teaching in the classroom. And it's a fine line. You have schools, and they are working to try to close the achievement gap. They need to know where these children are so that the interventions can be applied. We will continue to try to minimize the number of minutes, hours, days that have to occur in order for testing to occur. But I want you to know every district is struggling with the same complaint, the same criticism that there's too much testing.
You want to come up to the mic?
Everybody's struggling, I get that. And I have friends in different parts of the country, and I know their schools are doing the same thing. They're struggling. But I got to tell you, I think the tide is turning. There are hundreds of parents that I was just dealing with today that are ticked. They're done. They're sick of this. And why they're not here, I don't know, but I am. And I'm here as a voice for at least some of them to say that we are done with all of this testing. You know, more and more parents are asking about opting out in different groups that I'm a part of. They're done with these tests. They're done with stressing the kids out. They're done with seeing second graders, kindergartners, third graders tested out to the point that they're breaking down. And parents are just done. So I have to disagree. I think the tide is turning. I do see a problem, of course, that there's huge money from these testing companies. Their lobbyists want you guys to give these tests because they make a ton of money. They make a ton of money off every single kid taking their test. So we have to fight against that money. I don't have that kind of money to fight against them personally, but I'm here to bring it up to say again and again, and I know Justin is sick of me saying it to him, which is probably why he invited me here tonight. I'm done. I'm so sick of this. It's ridiculous. I don't have the money to fight the lobbyists, but I can come here and tell you that this is ridiculous. We have all these Leader in Me schools. Let's be a leader. Let's start fighting back against this testing. Why don't we try a different route? It's not working. Louisiana's still 49th and 50th every year. So why can't we try something different? I know we're tied down by what the state is telling us, that we have to have certain things that the state is. But if the state isn't telling us that it has to be done, all these other ones, let's get rid of them. Let's try a different method. Let's put our teachers back in charge of the classroom. Let's let our teachers tell us what these kids are doing. Let's try a different tactic, because what we're doing is not working. Did you have a question? No? You're just laughing at me?
No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just smiling at, I've heard it all before. No, I would make the point, though, Lori, that there are teachers who give these assessments. You know, like they said, the STAR. I know the accelerated reader, for instance. One of the questions I was going to ask, at least if the kids taking the STAR test during their library time. I would assume they are, because this is all coming from librarians, right? During which class? During English.
That 25 years ago that Mr. Craig, when I was administering STAR and AR in my classroom, it was during class time.
Okay. I was going to say, you know, if a librarian's telling me that she wants to give the kids the STAR test and put them in the accelerated reader program, well, that's a teacher telling you that helps her teach the kids. So I'm interested in finding a way to justify value for what we're doing with the kids, because I'm not going to take the position that every single one of these tests not required by the state has no value. I think that's probably false, because I was telling Dr. Chasson a couple weeks ago, you look at the AP test, that's money in students' pockets right there. That's higher financial aid, ACT retests, the work keys, all of that leads to higher financial aid. That is money directly into students' and parents' pockets. So I'm interested in hearing what the value is. It sounds like, and I'm glad to hear Ms. Samick say that there's an RFP in the works to combine iSteep and Leap 360 and get rid of the NWEA, because that's a great example of finding where there's value in an assessment. Great example. Now, does that mean that we can just say, oh, call it a day? You know, I'd never even heard of the STAR test. I rely on my fourth grader to tell me all these things. She never mentioned the STAR test. All right.
And your kids are French margin just like mine. They take it during English. That's prime English time that they're losing out on to take that test. And the teacher has to give it to every single kid to get their read level. So that's a lot of time.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I apologize. Go.
Something we could do in the classroom, not to stress the kids so much about testing, especially the assessments leading up to LEAP. I know you want them to do well, and you want them to take it seriously, but maybe something we could do in the classroom with the teachers, maybe not stress the kids out so much about the test.
I don't know.
So that way, when they bring it home, they're not all stressed out.
I saw a principal at Sam's last night, and she must have had 15 of those big boxes of Famous Amos cookies in her basket. And my daughter, who's taking the LEAP test next week, she says, "What's that for?" She said, "That's for testing." She goes, "Oh, I wish I went to your school." So I think there is at least, I tell that story to say, I think there is an effort to not put so much pressure on the kids. But the leap scores are tied to SLTs, right? I mean, once you do that, I don't know how you tell a teacher that they're going to be assessed on student performance on the SLTs and not have that bleed in at least just somewhat into.
But don't bring it into the students. Some ways.
I mean, and she's right. Look, there are teachers. There are teachers that have told students they're going to fail. They're going to be held back if they don't pass the LEAP test. I mean.
Anyway, I'll say this as a parent, as a comment. I really enjoyed getting the feedback of my kids' performances through these assessments to know how they were doing. So that way at the end, we're not struggling. It's not, the teachers teach and they have their job, but it's not totally their responsibility. As a parent, we need to know what's going as well to give them more help at home. So I really enjoyed those assessments and getting those results. And, they're in the classroom. They're either going to be doing work, testing, or doing something. So you're at school doing some form of work. So if it's a test or if it's a, an activity, you're in the classroom. So, you're there. So I'm not sure exactly why just being tested at that time while you're in the classroom, why is it, such a problem? Because you have to be in the classroom anyway. Learning, writing, doing work. You're saying the stress, putting the stress on the kids about testing, that would work for you. That's the whole problem right now. They're coming home stressed out. Oh, Mom, I have this test. I'm so stressed out. The teacher said I got to do good, and if I don't, I'm all stressed out. And that's your main problem here? I'm not sure if assessments are a waste of time. I'm not sold on that yet. I'm not sold on assessment.
I'm not saying don't assess the kids ever. I'm not saying that. An assessment used wisely at the end of the year, every other year, beginning of the year. But why do we have so many?
Okay. We could look at that. The ones that we are mandated to give, we know we have to give statewide, district-wide, and maybe we could look at our teachers, the extra little assessments they're giving on their own that's really not mandated by the state or the district. Maybe we could look at, holding back on those to kind of give the students some relief. But it's... Mm-hmm.
Assessments can be used and they can be used wisely. And you can give data or whatever. But there's just so many. There's so many tests that these kids have to take. And it's ridiculous, especially when we complain that we have no money to do out some of these tests. I mean, I would love to know how much we spend per student every year for the kids. Like the entire district, I would love to know how much money we're spending every single year. That's like everything.
Well, if the result is positive and they have high scores and they're learning, it's worth the money. That's what we do. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Some of them are A students, and they're getting basics, approaching basic, maybe mastering here and there. So, I mean, are they really?
again, those are state and district mandated, so.
That's why I said, if the state says we have to do it, we have to do it.
Mhm.
But then, if there's other tests that we can cut out, let's cut them out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. We could look at other tests that
So,
we.
so ma'am, the LEAP test doesn't cost the district anything.
I think what she's probably saying is how many Chromebooks do we have to buy, like that kind of stuff.
Chromebooks, yes,
Yeah.
but no.
But we get to
no
use those rest of
cost-
the year too.
No cost for the LEAP test.
So we get that test free of charge from whatever company is doing the testing.
Yet, the state pays for that.
It's not that it doesn't cost money; it's that we don't pay for it. That's
We
right.
don't pay it.
That's right. I'm sure it costs money.
Yes.
Last agenda item, item 2.3, consideration of general fund budget.
So this isn't coming from a individual board member separate of the actual meeting. To go back to the prior item, I need to know, and if somebody wants to jot this down, I need to know who was on that committee that chose it. I'd like to know the date it was chosen. So whatever meeting dates they had, I need the date. The date it was purchased.
I'm sorry, Dr. Shaston, which item are you referring to?
The
2.1, the first one, or?
No, ma'am.
2.2?
2.2,
Okay.
The test we were just speaking about.
Okay.
The Tier 3 question. The date it was purchased, who signed the authorizing purchase, and then lastly, when was it assessed by the state, that individual date, and what that individual assessment turned out to be. All right, thank you.
You have anything to add, Mrs. Santani?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving along, item 2.3, consideration of general budget fund.
I have a question. First question. Give me the breakdown of those teachers. I'm sure you guys remember. Lead teachers, content coaches, instructional strategists, academic specialists. What was that hierarchy for me again? Beat me to it, Doc. I appreciate you. Always prepared, like Mr. Craig. So instructional leaders are underneath principals. Oh no, that's transformation zone. Okay. When it comes to lead teachers, content coaches, instructional, what's the proper term for the instructional? They're not strategists anymore. Help me break it down.
The instructional leader.
Instructional strategists are now leaders.
Instructional leader.
Leader. Okay. So what's the help me with the hierarchy? We've got students, regular teachers. Above the teacher would be the lead teacher. Instructional leader is the lead teacher.
Are you talking about the transformation
No,
zone?
no, ma'am. No, just in general, every other school before transformation zones even came about.
Student, teacher, instructional leader.
So teacher, then instructional leader.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're going upwards.
Right, going upwards.
Yes.
So teacher, then, let me get a new page. All right. So we got teacher, then instructional leader. Who's above the instructional leader?
You're school-based?
Principal?
Well,
At the school.
At the
yes,
school.
yes, sir. I mean, it
Principal.
may be an assistant principal that, I'm not sure the hierarchy you're looking
Okay.
for, but principal is,
Who's the direct supervisor for the instructional leaders?
Principal.
Principal, okay. The instructional leaders technically would answer, let's say, I know they answer to the principal, But that person has to answer to who? The instructional leader. Who's the person over them?
At the principal.
The principal?
Is at the school, yes,
Okay.
sir. And then the principals would answer to the directors of elementary.
Brian and Kathy?
middle. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, by way of content coaches, who do the content coaches oversee?
Content coaches do not supervise anyone.
Anyone, okay. But they still go in and help the teacher, assist the teacher?
They work with the instructional leaders,
They
they
work with the
work with the
leaders.
teachers,
Okay.
they may collaborate with the principal.
So is a content coach considered over the instructional leader or not?
No, sir.
No, okay. And then lastly, who oversees the content coaches?
Specialists.
Specialists, okay. How many specialists do we have? Content coaches, there were 18 or 16, and now 8 went where?
There was
and then-
16, 8 are now master teachers, 8 are still content coaches, and I'm not counting the 2 that are with RTI 504.
Okay,
Their roles are different. They're called coaches, but their roles are different.
okay. And is the 2 considered in the 16?
No, sir. With the 2 RTI coaches, it'd be 18, so we eliminated them because they were not part of the split.
So that's Pam Deem and who else?
Yes. Her 2 coaches are Lisa and Lisa.
Lisa and Lisa? Is that an album?
I call them Lisa squared.
Lisa and Lisa. Lisa squared. All right. So what's Pam Deem's position?
She's a 504 RTI diagnostician.
So she's not a coach?
She is not.
Okay. RTI, diagnostician.
Yes, sir.
504,
She's actually also the school district's Title IX rep.
Title IX rep.
And dyslexia.
And
She's got
dyslexia.
quite the title. I
Right.
think she's got the biggest title.
Yeah, quite so. Bigger than his. I sometimes I look at his like, man, he's the secretary too. All right. Okay. And then how many specialists do we have? I see 1 here right now. How many do we have total? And then what are the individual categories? We've got
We have-
science, right?
We have science, social studies, who also does PE and health,
PE and health.
all in one.
Okay.
We have a K-5 ELA.
K5 ELA.
We have a special ed specialist who also does the 612 ELA.
Special ed specialist who does the 6 through 12 ELA.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
World language specialist.
World
We
language.
have arts and music.
World language, arts, and music is together?
No, sir. World language is
Then-
one.
Then arts.
Arts and music together.
Arts and music is together. Okay. Is that everyone? 3. We missing anybody?
I believe that's it
Okay.
for specialists.
So there are 2 RTI coaches that are underneath the 504
Yes, sir.
category? Okay. So 8 master, 8 content coaches still, 2 RTI coaches for a total of 18 coaches technically, right?
There were, yes.
Were, okay.
Yes.
And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specialists off the top of y'all head?
Yes, sir.
Science, social study, PE, health, K through 5, special ed specialist, K through 12, world language, arts and music. Okay. All righty. Okay. Second question. Jump into a totally different topic. What's the cost of the district for Leader and Me?
It's currently 66,000.
Total, all across the board?
66,000. That's the current cost. That's $3,000 per school.
Per school. And we're being aided by United Way
Yes.
to the tune of what?
That's It's a lot of money.
And I believe the Schumacher
Schumacher
Fountain gives it to the United Way.
Schumacher gives it to United Way? Okay. And anybody know what the actual total cost per school of Leader in Me, so I can break down?
I do not.
Is any-
It's a lot of money. And by the way, we have 6 additional schools that have said they want to be Leader in Me schools next year at $3,000 apiece. That would bring the total cost paid by the district to $81,000.
That doesn't add up. Somebody help me out with that. We went up 15
Six-
grand, and
60
we added 6 schools.
66,000 plus 18,000.
It's heavily subsidized by the
$84,000.
Schumacher Foundation and the United Way.
Heavily is like not
Heavily.
even a
Heavily
good word to
subsidized.
use. Okay, so
Remember we were talking about how much we subsidize teachers to go to graduate school?
Right.
It's like the opposite.
it's
of
the
that.
opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone off the top of their head, can they tell me what this Leader in Me costs per school? Justin, you had tossed some numbers out. You said you thought maybe it was
I'm going to guess it's probably $25,000 to $30,000 per school.
I thought it was somewhere in the 20s per school.
and we pay 3 and some other entity helps us out with the other
The remainder, yes.
90%.
Heavily
Okay,
subsidized.
okay. 10%. All right. And 90% is subsidized. Okay. Fast Forward. What do we pay for Fast Forward?
This past year, for the data part of the license, it was $114,000.
114,000. What's our total cost? What does it hit us for?
That's it.
Total.
That's it.
That's it. All right. So what was the statement, Ms. Sammy? You said the I'm sorry, I missed it. You said the data, the license?
Yes, sir. There's a data component. In order to read the data, receive the data, you pay an annual fee
Okay, so that's our annual fee?
for 26 schools.
Dr. Chasson, we own the licenses. They're perpetual licenses.
Perpetual licenses. When do they expire?
They do not.
That's what perpetual, the opposite? All right. So $114,000. What did we pay initially for the, because I was here at the time, I just don't remember. Does anybody recall what we paid for Fast Forward? Obviously, we don't have to pay it now. We're
I'm going to tell you that when we bought in St. Mary Parish,
Oh, no.
about
That's a long time ago, Doc.
about $48,000 per perpetual
per
license.
perpetual license. Does anybody know what we bought it for?
If you go back and look at one of the budget meetings from 2016, I believe we had 4 additional sites.
We added 4 sites?
I believe so.
Okay, and that was?
I think it was 2 years. We added a number of sites 2 years ago.
Okay. You wouldn't happen to know it, sir?
I mean, come on. I remember that we added 4 2
You
years
added
ago.
4 sites, okay.
Can you
Is-
cut me some slack?
Can somebody tell me what we paid for Fast Forward?
But I think he was very close. Like it was
I think it's
60 to 80 or something like that, right? Something. It was not over 100,000.
Okay,
I'm very confident of that.
all right. So like 1 point something million, we bought the Fast Forward licenses?
in total for the 26 licenses.
Yeah.
It's probably
So-
safe
okay,
to
all right.
estimate that.
Okay. Fast Forward. This is Leader. This is Fast Forward. Okay. What is the cost center? I'm going to jump back again now. What's the cost center for? Are the individual cost centers, the individual budget line items for an individual specialist, are they segregated into a science cost center, or they're all under one cost center?
For the most part, each specialist has their own cost center.
Has their own cost center, okay.
Mm.
What's the science cost center? And if 14, 16? Social studies, PE, and health. I'm gonna go through all 6, so if anybody could help them with it. K through 5 ELA, special ed specialists, 6 through 12 world languages and arts and music. K through 5 ELA? 1420. Okay.
K-12 art music is 1427.
1427. Social studies, special ed, and
Special ed is 1466.
1466. Okay.
Yes.
Social studies and world languages. And then the 8 content coaches. And that'll be my last question.
Dr. C, we did leave one off, our math specialist. I don't know how I missed math.
1429 is world language or foreign language.
1429?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Math specialist.
1467 is world language immersion? No, that's not that one.
No?
No, that's Magnet Academies.
1429. So I'm just need social studies and math.
Math, K to 12.
Uh-huh.
Math, 1455.
Okay. And social studies. PE and health.
PE and health is 1457.
1457? Okay. And then the 8 content coaches, that's under your cost center, Ms. Hammock?
No, they're
No.
under the federal programs.
Federal programs,
Title
Title
II.
II. Title II. Gotcha. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. That's all the questions that I had.
Okay. If that's all, I guess we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.